You're all sitting the way I sat 40 years ago, in a room very much like this one. Straight-backed, hands on your knees, waiting for me to put something enormous on the screen behind me. Claws, teeth, a warship the size of a moon. I know that look. I wore it. Going to show you anything like that. What I'm going to show you is a relay station. One building, prefabricated, gray, about the size of this hall. A weather mast. A landing pad cracked down from frost heave, and one human. This was Calder's Reach, on the edge of a system we'd been told was undefended. My unit, 300 troopers, 4 landers. Full siege allotment, was sent to take the relay station and hold it until the rest of the colony surrendered, which our intelligence assured us would happen within a day. The station's logs showed a crew of 3. 2 had evacuated on a supply runner 6 days before we arrived. The third, a maintenance technician named Aiden Hale, stayed behind to keep the relay transmitting weather and traffic data for ships still inbound. That was the whole of it. One man, alone, doing his job. Command's assessment was that he would surrender within the hour. I remember the briefing for that operation looked almost exactly like this one. A junior officer reading off a threat profile with nothing in it. No weapons registered to the station beyond a maintenance sidearm. No defensive emplacements. No history of military service on file for Aiden Hale. Just 11 years as a relay technician. First on a different world, then on this one. Someone in the back of that room laughed and said it sounded like a milk run. I want that laugh on the record, 'cause it's the last time anyone in my company laughed at something for 40 days. We landed at first light, set a perimeter at 400 meters, and broadcast the demand. The reply came back in a voice that did not sound like a man with 300 soldiers around his building. Negative, he said. Still got traffic coming in, give me a bit. We laughed, I laughed. Our company commander, a sub-commander named Threll, gave him 6 hours and went to sleep. By the time Threll woke, 2 of our forward observers were gone. Not dead, gone. Their tracking beacons simply stopped. We found one of them 11 hours later, unconscious, tangled in his own gear 30 meters from where he'd been posted, alive, with no memory of how he'd gotten there. The other we never found at all. Hale's voice came over the channel, once, unprompted, while we were searching. You've got people wandering around in the frost heave cracks near the pad, he said. Footing's bad out there. Might want to pull them back before someone breaks an ankle. That was the entire tone of the next 40 days. Not a threat. A maintenance note. We tightened the perimeter. We sent in armored units at night, in pairs under cover. Pairs went out and singles came back, walking, unarmed, weapons gone, with no memory past a flash of cold and a smell like ozone. Nothing was broken, nobody was shot. Command began logging it as equipment failure, because there was nothing else to log it as. Until the 7th night, when one trooper came back carrying his own rifle, disassembled, the parts individually wrapped in cloth and tied with cord, like a gift. On the 9th night, Threll sent in a full squad of 6, all on the same approach vector, on the theory that strength in numbers would change the outcome. It didn't change anything except the math. 6 went out. 6 came back, in the same loose group, none of them able to say how they'd gotten separated or reunited. 2 had lost their boots. 1 had his rifle's power cell removed and placed, intact, in his breast pocket, as though someone had wanted him to know it could have been worse. Threll stopped sending squads and starts starting single volunteers, on the theory that 1 man might be quieter than 6. The results were the same. The only thing that changed was how long it took us to find them after. I want you to understand what this did to 300 soldiers. We had come prepared for a fight. We had not come prepared for a man who, every night, quietly and without violence, took our people apart and gave most of them back. The ones he didn't give back simply weren't found, and the not knowing was worse than a body would have been. Command requested terms on day 11. Threll offered him safe transport off-world, full honors if he'd vacate the station. Hale's answer came back after a pause. The only pause in 40 days where he didn't answer immediately. Appreciate it, he said. But I've got a job to do here, and you're not really stopping me from doing it. I'll wait. 2 words did more damage to that siege than any weapon would have. I'll wait. Not a boast. Not defiance. The way you'd recognize defiance. No raised voice, no challenge. He said it the way you'd tell a delivery driver you'd be home all afternoon. so there was no rush. After that, the company started keeping two kinds of logs, the official ones for command, and the ones nobody wrote down. Troopers traded theories about what he was. Some thought reinforcements were hidden in the station. Scans found nothing but one human heat signature, constant, day and night, moving between the relay room and a small galley, and twice a day, outside to the weather mast, where he'd stand for 10 minutes doing nothing anyone could identify as tactical. Stretching, maybe. We watched him do it through 3 different sensor arrays and never found a reason for it. He was just there, unhurried, the same pace on day 30 as on day 1. By day 25, we had lost 41 personnel to unexplained incapacitation. Not one combat death. Not one shot fired by either side that we could confirm. Our perimeter had shrunk twice, because troopers refused to hold positions inside the Frostheave field after dark, and command let them, because every position inside that field eventually produced an empty post and a confused trooper a kilometer away with no boots. Command back at sector level began asking Threll for a timeline. He didn't have one. That's the part you need to sit with. We had overwhelming force. We had complete air superiority, total orbital control. Every advantage doctrine says wins a siege. And the only variable that mattered, how long this would take, belonged entirely to a man with a toolkit and a kettle. On day 40, Threll requested withdrawal and Sector approved it within the hour. Not because we'd lost. On paper, we hadn't lost anything we could point to. No destroyed equipment, no confirmed enemy casualties, nothing for the report except a long column of unexplained entries and a relay station still quietly transmitting weather data, exactly as it had been doing since before we arrived. We withdrew. The arithmetic had stopped working in any direction that helped us, and because everyone in that company, myself included, had quietly stopped sleeping. As the landers lifted, Hale's voice came over the open channel one last time, not to gloat. He sounded, if anything, mildly relieved, the way you'd sound when a long shift finally ends. "Tell your weather service thanks for the cooperation," he said. "Data's still good. Safe trip home." I asked him, years later, through a channel I won't go into here, what he had actually done out there for 40 days. He told me he'd mostly just kept working, and that the rest had been managing the situation as it came. I asked what that meant. He said it meant he hadn't needed to do anything he wasn't already going to do. Fix the relay, check the mast, deal with whoever came closer to see enough to be a problem, and otherwise wait for the part where we got tired before he did. I asked him if he'd ever been afraid in 40 days with 300 of us camped on his doorstep. He thought about it longer than he'd thought about anything else I'd asked. Then he said no, not because he didn't understand the danger, because being afraid wouldn't have gotten the relay fixed any faster, and the relay was the part of the job that actually mattered. Everything else, he said, was just weather. That's the lesson, cadets, not the toolkit, not the 40 unexplained entries. The lesson is that we came to that siege believing patience was a resource you had to manage, like fuel or ammunition, and that the side with more of everything would simply outlast the side with less. Hale wasn't managing his patience. He didn't have a finite supply of it to spend. He went to work in the morning and he came home at the same pace whether we were there or not, and after 40 days it was our patience that ran out. 300 of us against one man who was never for a single hour in any hurry at all. Write that down. Then we'll talk about what happens when there's more than one of them.